Okay, let's talk about the Cloverfield Paradox.
I have to be quick. Whatever you're doing right now, stop.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil the Conquistadork. It's the day after the Super Bowl, and you know what that means. A new Cloverfield movie, apparently. Yes, our sci-fi god himself, J.J. Abrams, in his infinite wisdom, decided to announce the third Cloverfield movie being released right after the Super Bowl, during the Super Bowl, which I'm sure was very exciting for some people. But for those of us who remember the marketing campaigns of the earlier Cloverfield movies, this one feels, I don't know, a little fast. You're moving a little fast, JJ. I don't know if we're ready for a serious relationship just yet, but we'll call you. And this was not good. There's no getting around it. I'm not going to tap dance around it. Cloverfield Paradox was a bad science fiction film, but it's one of those rare science fiction films, or any kind of film really, where the acting is actually fantastic, the directing is fine, it looks good, there aren't any problems with the special effects, but the script is garbage. It's just terrible. The storyline of this makes no sense, and not in the usual Cloverfield, let's do some digging and let's find out the meaning behind this kind of doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the sense that it's all over the place. So let's talk about that. The Cloverfield Paradox starts in an Earth in the near future, I suppose, where we are facing this global meltdown because all of our natural resources have run out, and countries are threatening war against each other in order to get what little there is. They don't go into a lot of the specifics on which resources in particular are completely gone, or why, if it's water or if it's fossil fuels, or it doesn't matter. They just put it out there. They say the resources, they're gone, and we've got to find a new way to get resources so that the world doesn't devolve into absolute chaos. Fine. Kind of an interesting idea, especially when you consider that their response to this is to send up a multinational crew, representatives from all the world powers, who are all scientists and engineers, to go up into space to work on what's called the Shepherd Project, which is this mysterious orbital space station that could possibly offer limitless and free natural resources, energy, as they put it. It's very vague, which is the first problem, because this is a what you'd call a straight-up science fiction film, for the most part, in the sense that it's about actual science. The idea is for it to be accurate, if at all possible. You're not going to see the Force or a lot of lightsabers around here. This is hard science fiction. And when you start off with very vague words like energy and natural resources, and we don't get a lot of details, you start to worry. We don't need a ton of details. We don't need 500 pages of exposition. That's fine. But a little something, some sort of explanation would be nice. And you're going to find yourself wanting an explanation a lot in this film. So go ahead and strap in. That's what we're dealing with. We're introduced to Ava. She is a British engineer or scientist. I'm never entirely sure what she is, who leaves her husband behind to go into space and work on this Shepherd project. It's interesting because while we're getting to know her and her husband, and we find out that they had children who tragically died, we're learning about what is called the Cloverfield Paradox, which means that if we get the infinite energy that we need from the Shepherd project, it could open up portals to other dimensions, which will bring about demons, one of the guys says, and it's never entirely clear how seriously the rest of the world is taking this, but it's introduced, the idea, so if they introduce that idea, we're getting alternate dimensions and demons. Let's face facts. Could use some more demons in this film, but I digress. Basically, we find out that she's been up there for a couple of years working on this project. They've been trying to make it work, and it keeps failing. And finally, in the very beginning of the film, our inciting incident, the project works. They power the thing up, and in the process of doing that, jump through the time-space continuum and end up in another dimension. The Earth disappears. They have no contact, they have no connection, and it's already very tense on this station because, like I said, it's a multinational crew. They're worried about other countries invading their countries, so they argue, they fight, and there's a level of paranoia there that I got really excited about because I was hoping that we were going to have a little more of what we got from 10 Cloverfield Lane, which had some amazing moments of paranoia and who do you trust and what can I do sort of moments. Those were great, and I was hoping for more of those, but pretty much the moment that they jump through space, they argue a little bit, but mostly that feeling is gone. Until the first crazy monkey wrench that they throw into the gears, they find a woman kind of inside the ship. She has somehow ended up inside behind the walls of the ship, and they tear her out of the wires and the machinery back there, and you find out the gist is that she was on the Shepherd Project in her dimension, the one that they're in now, but it failed, and she's there, and she knows the crew except for Ava. Well, she does know Ava, but Ava isn't supposed to be on the station in their world. It's weird, and they go into a few of the specifics, but it doesn't really matter. She just knows Ava as a person who works on the station from Earth. She doesn't know her. Ava doesn't know her at all. And so there's a lot of confusion as to where she came from, what's she all about, how the hell is all this stuff happening. And while this is happening, the Russian is, yes, there is a Russian on the station, and he's, of course, the one that everyone dislikes because he's definitely the most paranoid, and he's accusing people of fucking up all the time, and that's kind of his thing. He's the jackass of the team. And Monday, Chris O'Dowd, our favorite Irishman, is the funny guy of the team. And that's about it as far as characterization is concerned. We've got a jackass, we got a funny guy. Don't worry about the jackass too much because he completely loses it to his paranoia. 3D prints a gun, because that's something you can do up there, and threatens the crew. And while threatening the crew, has a major seizure and basically dies. He dies on... they take his body to a table, and he fucking dies on them. For no reason that is completely clear. And then, as long as we're on the subject of things that we're not entirely sure why the fuck they're happening, his guts kind of explode, and all of the worms... Yeah, they had a worm colony up there for no discernible reason. They just had a worm colony in space with them, and all those worms which had disappeared after the Shepherd Project, shepherded them. Oh, maybe that. Oh, how clever. Calling your project the Shepherd Project, and it shepherded them through the dimensions. Word plays. Oh, you genius screenwriters. Were you wondering where those worms got to? Me neither. But don't worry, they were inside the Russian guy's guts for some reason. And everyone freaks out and starts stomping on the worms as if they are these alien monsters. It's so random and weird. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting you to see a guy with his guts full of worms just exploding onto the floor and going, ooh, candy, like it's a piñata or something. But they just start stomping the worms, and it's so weird. Those worms didn't ask for this. They didn't want to be in your shitty crew. Like, calm the fuck down. So that happens for some reason, and they go, oh, what the fuck? And it just... This basically leads to moment after moment of random weird shit happening. Mundy, who I mentioned before, is working on one of the walls, and his arm gets sucked into the wall, and when he can finally pull it out, the arm is just gone, up to past his elbow. It's just disappeared. Not bleeding, not broken bones. It's just gone now. No idea why that happened, but don't worry. Were you worried about where his arm is? Me neither. But they find the arm, pulling itself along like fucking Thing from the Addams Family. Pulling itself along, they put it in a glass jar, and the hand attached to the arm starts tapping out shit. And they realize it wants to write something. And so they give a pen to the arm, and it writes that you should look inside the Russian's guts, open him up. Worms weren't all that were there, apparently. So they go and they open up the Russian, and what do you know? The gyroscope, which is basically their navigator. It's a compass, essentially, to keep them organized and oriented within space, is inside the Russian. Why? I don't fucking know. I don't think the screenwriter knows. I think the only real explanation you can have for it is that when they transported through dimensions, things got shifted around, and so now things are inside of things. That's about the only explanation I can come up with. It doesn't matter, though. None of those things matter, and none of them have anything to do with the final moment of this film. Okay, so as this is going on, long story short, they're trying to figure out a way to get back to their own dimension. Okay, solid enough plotline. How the hell do we get back? And they've got this new member on board who was apparently from that dimension, not from theirs. And she's helping them along. They're going to let her leave in an escape pod so she can go back to her world. And she reveals to Ava, our main character, because she knows her. Remember that. She knows Ava. Ava doesn't know her, but she knows her, and she reveals to her that Ava's family, her children who tragically died in her own dimension, are alive in this one, that they're fine. And Ava, of course, has this crisis of she wants to stay, and she wants to see her family again, and she wants to save them from the house fire that killed the kids in her world. It's this whole conundrum that she has of, like, what do I do? Do I stay? Do I go? And she decides she wants to stay. And her captain tells her that's not a good idea. This isn't your world. And she says, I don't give a shit. And he says, great, fine. You do whatever the fuck you want. I want to go home. So they're figuring out how to get through to the next dimension. While this happens, a bunch of people die. For no apparent reason. The Chinese officer is drowned in one of the chambers. It's flooded, and she can't get out, and so she drowns. Actually, technically, she freezes to death because the glass that's or the wall, rather, that is keeping her in there collapses, and she is pulled out into space, and of course all the water freezes. I don't know why that happened. I don't think anyone does. Also, Mundi, our funny guy, the funny guy with all the quips, lots of quips, stupid quips, really, throughout what is a very serious and fucked up plotline. Lots of stupid jokes. For him, he dies, sadly. Not so sadly, but he dies. And it through this weird magnetic thing that happens. No idea why that happened. What the fuck is going on? And the ship's just falling apart on top of everything else. And when he dies and the magnetic poles reverse or whatever the fuck happened, it's basically destroying part of the ship. So add another fucking can of gasoline onto this dumpster fire of a script. So they're trying to figure it out. The captain sacrifices himself so that they can get the part of the ship that is broken as hell off. And finally, when it looks like everything's gonna be okay, and Ava and the girl from that dimension get into their escape pod to go, the girl from that dimension attacks the rest of the crew. Basically, her motivation is that if they leave, they're going to take the Shepherd Project with them, and her world, which doesn't have a Shepherd Project, is going to continue to die and suffer. And they ask her, are you gonna kill people on board so this happens? And she says, she basically says it's a few of you versus billions of people on Earth, so absolutely. Which, fair point. Okay, fair point. So she's trying to kill everybody. Ava changes her mind because she didn't change her mind. She's attacked by the woman and knocked out And she wakes up and says, oh, that bitch is crazy. I'm going to go have to take care of this, I suppose. They have a huge fight. Ava throws her out in airlock, kills her, and then everything just kind of works. They figure out how to get the Shepherd Project going again. Oh yeah, because they determined somehow that if they make the Shepherd Project work one more time, it'll bring them back to their dimension. So they do that. She and the German guy are the only people who have survived. They're back in their world. Oh, and by the way, before they leave, she sends a message to herself in that dimension, telling her not only how to make the Shepherd Project for themselves and save themselves, which, very decent of her, but also to go and love her family and kiss them and hug them. And she realizes it's not her world, it's her world. And her world is her world because they're the same person, kind of. Yeah. What the fuck is going on? Oh, and by the way, to save a bunch of people who died, why not just tell the woman whose dimension you're in? Why not just do her a favor and say, hey, by the way, yeah, we're leaving. And I know that sucks because you guys don't have a Shepherd Project, but we're just going to include all these plans on how to make your own Shepherd Project so it'll work for you guys. Why not fucking do that in the first place? That could have saved everyone some heartache. If she had just said, hey, well, stop pulling a gun on us and threatening us and trying to kill us. We'll give you the plans. Of course we'll give you the plans. Why is it such a big goddamn deal? It's insane. It makes no fucking sense. And by the way, I ramble a lot in my videos. I've had people complain about it in my reviews. I go off on tangents. This is about as succinct as I can make this plot line. So, yeah, Jesus Christ. We're getting to the end. Ava and the German make their ways back to their own dimension. They make the Shepherd Project work, thus giving everybody energy. It's a happy ending, and then they are leaving the station to come back to Earth, and she's really excited because her husband. I'm not even going to get into what her husband's been dealing with on the planet. Basically, some sort of colossal thing is happening. It looks like a war zone, and her husband is trying to figure out what's happened to his wife while this whole exquisite fucking Armageddon scenario is going down. He's trying to figure out what that's about and also what's happened to his wife. We don't see him a lot. It doesn't matter. So finally, our heroes are on the dropship heading back into Earth, and while that's happening, we get shots of her husband talking to the guy in charge of the station saying, hey, your wife's fine, we're bringing her back. And the husband starts freaking out and saying, why are you bringing her back? Well, don't bring her back to this world, this horrible world with those things, with those monsters. We got our demons, we got our monsters. And our final moment in the film is the ship, this tiny dot on the horizon, pushing its way through the cloud cover of the planet, and a giant monster, the Cloverfield monster, in fact, but not bigger than skyscrapers, bigger than fucking mountains. That's how big this fucking thing is. It's the size of a goddamn mountain, and its head tears through the cloud cover, and it roars. It's a fuck you ending, is what it is. And for those of you who don't know what I mean by that, and it's probably all of you because it's kind of a personal term, a fuck you ending is an ending that's so stupid and so out of nowhere that all you can do is stare at the credits and say, fuck you. And that's what I want to say to the Cloverfield Paradox. Fuck you. What a fucking abysmal film this was. But like I said in the beginning of my review here, it was such a strange kind of abysmal film because it has a really good cast. The main actress who plays Ava is fantastic. She has wonderful moments. She has these sweet moments with her family that you see in flashbacks, and she and her husband have such great chemistry together. They're really cute and like just this adorable couple, and she has her serious moments and her passionate moments and her violent moments. It's wild. She's really, really good in it. The rest of the cast is good, too. I would say that the only one that I didn't like was Chris O'Dowd, and that's not even his fault. I like Chris O'Dowd. He's a funny, charming dude, and he's normally in comedies, and that's clearly his bailiwick, and he's really, really good at it. But this film has a tone problem, to say the very least. On one hand, it wants to be that sort of serious, hard-hitting, thoughtful, theoretical astrophysics kind of science fiction film that requires a lot of thought, and there are all kinds of could this mean this? Could this mean this? It asks a lot of questions. The writer of this clearly loves him some Philip K. Dick, but he didn't take the time to actually try and work out how that could work. Like, he asks a bunch of questions, but answers none of them. It's such a garbage fire. There are too many open-ended things that are never explained. Why does the guy lose his arm? I don't know. It was weird. It's science fiction. Okay, fine. He lost his arm. Okay, so theoretically, maybe that arm is from the other dimension. Cool. It's another arm because it's moving without his control. They point that out. So if my arm got sucked into another dimension, how would I know to tap and to write and give people hints on what to do next? If my arm is in another... Is it a new arm? Is the arm a sentient being? Is the arm the Cloverfield monster? Is that what you're getting at? No, it's stupid. It's the dumbest escape room style plot device. It sucks. It's terrible. And like I said, the actors in this, they're really good. They do such a good job with the terrible script they're given. The directing is fine. It's perfectly serviceable. There's no real problem with the special effects. The scenes were put together well. The cinematography seemed fine. The lighting was good. The sound was good. It was just a terrible, terrible story. It was like watching the Royal Shakespeare Company put on a production of the one-act play that your Aunt Tammy wrote when she was drunk and trying to get over her recent divorce. It's wonderful frosting on top of a layer of shit. It is a awful movie. Oh my god. Oh Jesus Christ. I'm getting madder and madder just talking about it. When I sat down to just walk my way through this, like I always do with these reviews, I was just like, wow, that was not a good movie. But the more I'm expressing it and talking about the problems, and it's making less and less sense as it goes, the more you think about it, the more it unravels. It's absolutely insane. And what a disappointing third part to what is otherwise a really good trilogy. The Cloverfield films are fantastic, and they've talked a lot about how they all connect. That's what they've said. They're like, no, they connect, and you're not going to understand why at first, and that's okay, but they all interconnect. And this is probably the most obvious film of the three to show up. Well, it's the most obvious evidence of how they connect, because that's the goddamn Cloverfield monster. There's no mistaking it. That's exactly what it is at the end of the film. And I don't care anymore. I don't care. I don't care about your mythology. I don't care about the big... I don't care about the big storyline you've got, because you couldn't even answer the smaller questions in one of your films. This was not a good movie. The Cloverfield Paradox, My name is Phil the Conquistadork. I hope you enjoyed me rambling and ranting and freaking out. I haven't had a drop of alcohol today, by the way. This is what I'm like on the Cloverfield Paradox. This is what I'm like on the Cloverfield Paradox. Don't be like me. Fuck.
If Daddy don't sink a little drinky, Daddy gets sad and blue. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you.